Hey, welcome to Blue Dream Health Collective, where we talk about real health as well as chronic illness, self-care, mental health, and other interesting and educational topics. I'm the host, Misty Blue, a biomedical science major and a chronic illness warrior. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you love this
Hope for
episode.
Ataxia's mission is to raise awareness globally and to make a meaningful and positive impact in rare diseases narrative. Founded in 2019, Hope for Ataxia is a federally incorporated nonprofit organization based in Canada. Today, I have a very special guest, co-founder Courtney. So say hello and introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you for
Hello.
the warm introduction. I'm so honored to be here, and thank you for giving me this platform.
Absolutely.
I'm 30 years old from Toronto, and I have a form of ataxia called ARCA1, which is autosomal recessive cerebellar ataxia type 1.
Wow, that's
It's a
a lot.
mouthful.
So, okay, so we're going to be talking about ataxia. Let's start out with what is ataxia?
Yeah, of course. So, ataxia is a group of life-altering, progressive neurological conditions affecting any age, and they all impair balance, coordination, and speech. So, it's a rare neurological condition. So, the symptoms and the rate of progression varies from person to person, and depending on the type of ataxia you have. So some common symptoms are like lack of coordination, slurred speech, trouble eating and swallowing, difficulty walking, gait abnormalities, and so on.
Okay.
So sometimes people with ataxia might need mobility aids, so using things like wheelchairs or walkers or scooters. And those symptoms are all due to damage to the cerebellum, which is the powerhouse part of the brain which controls coordination, among other things. And there is no cure for ataxia, but there are medications to assist with the symptoms.
And so, from what I briefly read about it, it's also degenerative. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. As far as I understand it to be,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So, what motivated or inspired you to create Hope for Ataxia?
Yeah. Great question. So, I was a couple motivating factors for me. So, a couple of years ago, when I was 28, I was coming to terms with my diagnosis. And I was in now for good 2 to 3 years from that point. And I wasn't really happy with the way things were going in my life. And so, I wanted to do something positive and meaningful. I figured, if I'm struggling coming to terms with what I'm going through, and the challenges and everything, then surely there's other people that are also experiencing that. And I know I can't be alone. And so I wanted to create that positive, supportive environment for other people. And, I want the messaging to be that, people are not alone, and that, you know, it's really collective. The community of rare diseases is really, there's a lot of commonalities. And that was a really big motivating factor for me. And the second one was when I told my extended family about my diagnosis. They didn't really know what it was. And so I thought, okay, there's really not enough knowledge or awareness of such a rare condition. And so, you know, I want to be able to raise awareness so that, people are not mislabeled and misdiagnosed and misclassified.
I love that so much. That's absolutely my mission for Blue Dream Health Collective is just, people like you coming on and having a platform and sharing their story. When you get diagnosed with something that people can barely pronounce or understand, um, it's nice to, number one, feel like we have people who understand us and that there's support, and then also like way to explain it to loved ones, and then also maybe even raise, awareness to those that are in the healthcare industry as well. So I think that's amazing that you're doing this and
Oh,
turning something that's like really stressful and frustrating into a positive thing by giving back basically to the community and helping others. So that's
yeah.
awesome.
Oh, thanks. And it's definitely always a journey. I'm still going through my own struggles, all the time. So I the work is never done. And I
Hmm.
think, as time goes on, there's more types of ataxia out there. There's more people who are diagnosed, and it's okay, what do we do now? You know?
Yeah. So I would love to hear more about your personal story with your diagnosis. Like, how
Mhm.
long did it take you to get diagnosed? What was that process like? Were you misdiagnosed? Did anyone tell you it was in your head? Give me all that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So I started getting symptoms when I was 19. And I didn't get officially diagnosed until I was 25. Um, and it was interesting because I had gone to the doctor for something completely unrelated. Um, and, she sent me to like a stroke specialist, and I had an MRI done. And, I thought nothing of it. And they actually said, okay, well, we found something. And I was like, what? I was pretty shocked at the
Wow.
time. Yeah, they came in, it was like just like on TV. They come in, they had the like, so your cerebellum is smaller than average and it's moderate. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
Wow.
Yeah. So, I spent about a year just going through different tests, trying to figure out what it was. So a lot of blood work, and just they didn't know what it was, and they were just trying to find out, what the cause of this was and everything. Um, and at the time, the symptoms that I noticed were my fine motor skills, so like writing and things like walking. And I always thought that it was just me being clumsy. I might, stumble if I get up too fast, or I might hit the side of a table. I never thought it was actually something. Um, so I got diagnosed after I saw a geneticist sent who got my blood work, and the panel came back that I had ARCA1, which is a recessive type of ataxia. So that means both my parents are carriers, and then I had a 1 in 4 chance of getting the gene.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that like processing that when you found out this discovery? I mean, you said you went in for something unrelated and came out with, a pretty serious degenerative diagnosis.
Yeah, definitely. So, it was definitely a shock. I wasn't anticipating it, but I also didn't know what it was. And I was, like I said, I think I was in denial for a good few years there. Um, I was in my mid 20s. I saw all of my peers doing other things, um, and that I wanted to do, but it was more difficult for me. Like, I get more tired, or I alcohol drinking might affect my inhibitions a little more. So like my walking, my slur of speech, things like that might be more affected. But so really, I was definitely like shocked at the time. And I just sort of pushed it back into the back of my head. I didn't really acknowledge it. I didn't really want to think about it. Um, yeah.
Wow. And then this came about, which has been probably like really helpful for coping and educating not only yourself, but other people. So, with that, Hope for Ataxia, what does the organization do? So, if I go to your website and I want to find out more, what do you all have to offer? What can we expect?
Yeah, of course. So at our core, we want to raise ataxia awareness globally. So we want to, spread the word to as many people as we can, let people know this is what ataxia is. There is, supports out there. That's our main goal. And through that mission, different initiatives. So we have things like our Facebook page. So we have social media channels. So our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then we also publish something called Faces of Ataxia, which is a blog post that we have every week where we'll profile someone with ataxia or a caregiver or friend, whatever the relationship with ataxia is, and they'll share their journey and their experience with it. And this is really so that we can, share as many stories as we can. I think oftentimes in the disability community, often our stories are not told or we're not heard. And so I think it's really important that we do shine a light on people because everyone's experience is so unique and so powerful.
Yeah.
And, we also do something where we will do awareness and fundraising campaigns to really generate further awareness. And so we'll partner with larger national organizations like Ataxia Canada, for instance, and we'll do a fundraising event where, the proceeds will go back to them. And there are some really great national organizations like Ataxia Canada, but also like in the US, the National Ataxia Foundation, and they do great work and they focus on research and, finding cure. And really our focus is on the emotional aspect. So we also have these support groups that we run every Friday as well. So that's open for anyone to attend, wherever stage you are with ataxia, whatever your relationship is with it, you're more than welcome to come. And so that's a lot of things, but I guess that,
No, that's
those are all,
perfect.
those are all the sort of different, I guess, projects that we work on in order to raise ataxia awareness.
I love that because, like you said, everyone's stories are unique. I find that when someone shares their story and they have a specific diagnosis, and then somebody else with that same diagnosis shares their story, they're always so different. And I think that's really helpful because, at the end of the day, we can't expect to look at someone's story and because we don't fit that like in a cookie cutter way, I feel like that makes people feel like they might not be able to relate. So when you have other people's stories, I feel like it just kind of makes a little more sense and just shows how different people can be.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
what are some common stigmas with ataxia?
Yeah. So one of them is that you could catch it. So ataxia is not like the common cold. You can't just catch it like the flu or anything. Um, so you can either only get it through hereditary or acquired means. So it's damage to the cerebellum. So acquired ataxia is when you've got um, some sort of brain damage or some sort of injury, some sort of traumatic incident that leads to ataxia. It can also be sporadic. So it appears it appears out of nowhere. It seems like it does. And then hereditary, which is what I have, it's where it's passed down through generations of generation. Someone in your family has it and it's passed down genetically.
So, who are the faces of ataxia? What is life like with this neurological condition?
Yeah, of course. So, the face of ataxia is anyone in the community that we reach out to us who want to share their story. We are open to spreading anyone's story if they want to share it. So we're always open for, new submissions. In terms of what life is like, so I would say every day is a challenge. I think physically, there's always there are things that I struggle with. So I have something called dysarthria, which is slur of speech. So I have to be mindful of how slow I'm speaking and be really articulate. Um, and then there's the balance, so the walking and the gait abnormality. Um, but also on a mental health perspective, you know, sorry, going back to a stigma is that it's purely physical, and with ataxia, it's not really purely physical. There's a lot of it can affect cognition and emotion as well. And for myself, part of it can be that I struggle with you know getting out of bed every day and find the motivation and inspiration to keep going and moving forward. Sometimes it's easy to just not do that. um and I think it's easy when you have a condition to think it's very tunnel vision. And so I always have to constantly remind myself that it's not about me, it's about others. And that helps me to sort of get out of any sort of lull I'm in. But that's something that I also, and I'm sure a lot of other people struggle with as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can be very hard some days, I think, for a lot of people in the chronic illness community, getting out of bed.
Yeah.
So I've seen for people who have like MS, I've seen like shirts or memes where they say, I'm not drunk, I have MS. Is that another similar stigma that, might have to deal with?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, another one is that people think that we're inebriated, because with the coordination and the gait, we might not be as coordinated as others, and so it might look like we're drunk, but we actually have conditions.
So is there anything that can help with the conditions or I know there's no cure, but is there anything you can do that helps with that?
Yeah. So in my own life, I do a lot of experimentation with diet and exercise. So, always keeping my body moving helps. I think it's helpful for anybody, but I think especially for people with ataxia, it's really important so your muscles don't atrophy and you're constantly keeping moving. So that's been helpful. And also just experimenting with different foods and seeing what works for me and what doesn't. So some foods can, might inflame or exacerbate, your symptoms. So, testing different things out and seeing what works has been helpful.
And then another question would be if what does the future look like for those who have ataxia? It's a degenerative disorder. So what, how does that look like in the
Mhm.
future
Yeah,
for you?
yeah. So I know that, there are clinical trials going on, and there is always a search for a cure for ataxia. And what that looks like, I don't know. But I know that there's a lot of research being done in terms of looking forward and look at new ways to eradicate this, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm actually a biomedical student, and right now the really cool thing that is available is the CRISPR technology, which is gene editing, and I know there's ways to, for example, they're working on eradicating malaria, they're working on treating, trying to find ways to prevent Lyme from coming into existence,
Mm-hmm.
and so hopefully that's another thing that's on the list. That's somebody's out there is working on it, and that's what helps with raising the money and doing the fundraisers is that money goes towards, those researchers and people in the biomedical field and biomedical technology and all of that to kind of make some type of progress.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a funny coincidence because in last week we were just talking about CRISPR, and
Mm-hmm.
the possible applications it could have with ataxia, because I know it's been used in other conditions, like I think the article I was reading was about cystic fibrosis.
Mm.
And so it's interesting, I think the landscape is really exciting in terms of what is possible out there. And I think that, there's always new things coming up.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for that. For most conditions that in the future that hopefully we're getting closer to having this amazing technology. So as far as the future for the organization, what are your goals and what do you see for Hope for Ataxia for 2021?
Yeah. So we really want to focus on our support groups and just make that as great as it can be. So to reach as many people as we can. We have we do a couple in a couple time zones. So we try to reach different audiences. And I think, continue to get really great speakers and to push the caliber of what we can provide. That's sort of at the forefront of what we want to do. And the second thing is really upping our fundraising and awareness campaigns. I know it's kind of tough in the landscape we're in right now, but a lot of things can be done virtually. So I think that that's really exciting prospect, and that's something that we're looking forward to in the year as well.
Awesome. So how can others get involved?
Yeah, so we are active on all social media. It's just Hope for Ataxia. And you can also email us directly if you're interested in volunteering or getting involved. And it's just info@hopeforataxia.org. You can also email me. My name it's Courtney@hopeforataxia.org.
I love it. So any last minute things to add before we wrap up?
I want to say thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome, and I really enjoyed it.
Yes, anytime. And I'm going to have all of your links and your email and everything included on the website and the blog notes and the blog post with the episode notes. So anyone listening, if you didn't get that, it'll be available to direct to the website and Instagram.
Perfect.
So thank you so much. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, thanks.
Please be sure that you subscribe to the blog, which is bluedreamhealth.com, where you can find additional links and information on this episode. You can also check out the digital magazine on our website, as well as find us on Patreon, where you can be a supporter.